Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be looking at a band I have covered about 3 times now on this channel before. I think the last time I covered them was about a year ago, possibly last Halloween, and that band is Tardigrade Inferno, the avant-garde sort of cabaret carnival metal band. The first track I ever covered of theirs was their version of We Are Number One from, is it Lazy Town, I think it's called. Then I looked at another track called Execution's Fun, and last year around Halloween they did the track Spooky Scary Skeletons. Now today I'm going to be looking at a track called Clockwork God. I think this came out just a few days ago. I think it was released on the 10th of October, I could be mistaken. Now, like I said, they've been quite a fun, quite entertaining band. Their videos have tended to be rather silly and, well, entertaining and amusing. So I'm kind of expecting the same sort of thing, although the thumbnail for this video looks kind of serious and dark. So who knows? I've got lyrics here. They come from directly underneath the video, which of course will also be linked in the description below as usual. So yeah, before we jump into it, if you could click like and subscribe, that would be really helpful. That would be great for me. That would be great for the channel. But yeah, let's jump straight into this and see what we've got. So Clockwork God by Tardigrade Inferno. Let's have a look.
That can talk and dream and feel and think. Everything we know leads us to the next. The mind is the contraption that is ground too complex. If only I could make a god from the machine, multiply complexity until it dies storm and will. First there was the God Almighty, from the God kids only turn and bend. The soul commanded, but he made the call.
There we go. Clockwork God by Tardigrade Inferno. And like I suspected at the beginning, this is a much sort of darker sort of song than I've actually heard by Tardigrade Inferno before. Because like I said, the three that I've checked out on this channel have been somewhat silly, very sort of jovial sort of tracks, but this one's, you know, even the video was quite dark. You know, all the previous videos have been bright colours and that sort of thing. This is much more serious, but it's still highly entertaining. The music is still great. You know, it's still got that sort of carnivalesque feel about it. And the vocal performance in this, you know, I've mentioned before, you know, she got a pretty good voice. And in We Are Number One, we got a little bit of a hint that she can do some sort of harsher, sort of almost death metal growls. And in this, if you actually listen to it, I wouldn't say really carefully, because it, you know, it's noticeable, but it's sort of layered underneath everything else. You can actually hear her doing sort of slight, possibly vocal fry, sort of harsher vocals than we normally hear from it. So, yeah, that was quite entertaining. It's a good track. It's a very, very good track. Very, very catchy, which is, again, something this band is great at doing. They write very catchy music. Now, the actual song itself, Clockwork God, it seems to be telling the story of trying to create a Clockwork God. You know, they're trying to create a facsimile of God itself. You know, they're trying to create something in God's image. You know, trying to make a physical alternative rather than this mystical magic being that everyone seems to believe in for some totally bizarre reason. And, you know, they're saying, you know, she's saying, you know, it's really difficult to try and create this because, you know, in reality, there's no actual plans to follow, you know, because no one can actually specify who or what God is. So trying to create a duplicate of this divine being is near impossible. And then she sort of comes to the conclusion, God isn't actually real. There is no way you can duplicate it because you cannot duplicate something that doesn't exist. You can create something to put in place of something. You know, you can put a physical thing in space of an idea, but you can't recreate something that doesn't actually exist. Yeah, you can create something that doesn't actually exist, but you can't recreate something that doesn't exist. So, you know, this is being told sort of like from the perspective of the inventor, which is obviously who the singer is representing in this video. And the lyrics go, "My clockwork is supreme. It is turning complete," or it says here Turing complete, you know, but I'm thinking it's supposed to say turning. "It's better than the flesh because bodies tend to bleed. I'll make a machine with cog and torsion spring, a human-like construction that can talk, dream, and feel and think." So, you know, she's saying she's going to create this sort of automaton, as it were. You know, and it's better than creating something out of flesh because flesh bodies are weak, you know, they are susceptible to bleeding, entropy, death, that sort of thing. You know, machines are also too, but they take a lot longer to sort of do that sort of thing. You know, it says that I'm making a machine. It's better than the flesh because the bodies tend to bleed. You know, and it's got a sort of steampunk aesthetic to it because it's all about springs, cogs, you know, clockwork sort of thing. Clockwork God. Everything we know leads us to the next. The mind is the contraption that has grown too complex. If only I could make a god from the machine, multiply complexity until it gains form and will. So it says, yeah, the mind is a contraption that has grown too complex. You know, it's often stated that the brain is the most powerful computer known to mankind, and it's near impossible to duplicate. You cannot recreate the human brain. You know, people have tried. You know, they've got artificial intelligences. You know, you got networks. I can't think of the word I'm looking for now. You know, they've tried to recreate a mind that can think and use imagination and stuff like that, and so far they've been unsuccessful. It's a very, very complex thing that no one fully understands. And And it says there, the mind is a contraption that has grown too complex. And then she goes, if only I could make a god from the machine. God from the machine is, well, Deus Ex Machina, means God in the machine. Trying to create God from the machine, trying to duplicate God in a physical manifestation, as it were. Multiply complexity until it gains form and will. So make the mechanism more and more complicated, more and more advanced, keep working on it until it transcends basically a mere machine and becomes a sort of sentient being. It goes into the chorus. It says, first there was the God Almighty, from God came soul eternal, then the soul commanded body, body made the cog. From the cog I'll make a body, that with the spring I'll make a mind. When the mind grows almighty, then I'll make a clockwork God. So it's like, first there came God, then came the soul eternal. From the soul there came the body, and then the body made the implements in which she intends to use to create the automaton. It says from the cog I'll make a body. She's sort of reverse. It even says later in the song, she's trying to reverse engineer it. So it's like God made the soul made the body made the cog, and she's going from the cog I'll make the body, from the god and then with a spring I'll make a mind. When the mind grows almighty, then I'll make a clockwork God. So it's like I'll take the cog that we've made, I'll make the body, then the soul, and then essentially the God that created all of this. So she's trying to reverse engineer God. She's trying to recreate God from, because God made man in his image, allegedly. With the spring I'll make a mind. Why the spring, I don't know, but we'll go with it. And it says that when the mind grows almighty, so she's going to create this machine that's going to learn, and it's going to transcend human understanding. It'll become more complex and essentially become the God that essentially created us, allegedly. I'm spending days and nights on my impossible invention. I left my mind open for divine intervention. While artificial humans will be sure someone's focused, for me it's but a step to my divine magnum opus. The forward march of science gives us all that it can bring, but all that I will need is a chain, a cog, a spring. And while the copper parts grow exponentially in size, I fear there is one thing that I've yet to realise. So again, spending days, nights, fervently working on this invention. She's left her mind open to divine intervention, for maybe God to sort of go, excuse me, you're not supposed to be doing this, or him to go, look, this is how you do it. And it says here, while artificial humans will be sure someone's focus, people are already, creating robots, to replace humans in like manufacturing processes. There's robotic butlers, there's these machines that you see in like restaurants that sort of wheedle around and sort of deliver drinks to a table, and more often than not they tend to fall over or drop stuff, but it happens. They still exist. And she's saying, people are focusing on that sort of thing. I'm looking to create something bigger and better. I want to, again, transcend that. I want to create essentially God. I want to create the physical manifestation of God. And she says it's just a step to my divine magnum opus. The forward march of science gives us all that it can bring, but all that I will need is just a chain, a cog, a spring. So she's like, advancements in science that are still ongoing. Things are getting more and more within our reach to create insanely complex things. A couple of decades ago, what we've got now seemed impossible. Centuries before, it was like unimaginable. Because you look at, you look at science fiction novels from like, early 1900s. They've got all these sort of unimaginable things that could possibly take place. Take for example the original Star Trek. From when was the original Star Trek? That was like the 70s, wasn't it? And now we've got things like, we've got smartphones, we got like iPads and stuff like that. All of these sort of things were inspired by things like Star Trek, because back then they had these flat data pads, I believe they called them in the show, and they were just wirelessly and remotely doing things on them. the communicators inspired flip phones. So back then those things were like way beyond our ability. But someone thought these ideas up, and people over the years have gone, that's really, really cool. Let's try and create that. So science advances. It actually advances pretty quickly. She's saying, as science goes on, it makes it more and more possible to do what we previously thought was impossible. And she goes, while the copper parts grow exponentially in size, I fear there's one thing that I have yet to realise. So, whilst things get more and more complicated, while things get bigger and bigger and, more difficult and complicated, there's something I have yet to realise. And then it goes back into that chorus. First it was the God Almighty, from God came the soul eternal, from the soul then the soul commanded body, body made the cog. From the cog I'll make a body, from the spring I'll make a mind. When the mind grows almighty, then I'll make a clockwork God. And I failed to mention this first time I read the chorus. When it says, then I'll make the clockwork God, that's when you actually hear her sort of harsher vocal sort of come in. It's like I say, it's sort of underneath everything else, but you can just hear the harsh vocal come through there. Because everything miraculous can be expressed with calculus. Got nothing but my sweat and blood to reverse engineer the God. But I've spent years with no success. There's no solution. It makes no sense. A blank space sits amidst my scripts. I've tried it all, but nothing fits. So again, everything miraculous can be explained with calculus. Everything that happens in this world, even the creation of the universe, can be explained with science and mathematics. And people like Stephen Hawking, he's explained, I think it was him, or, scientists over the years have written out the equation that would have created the Big Bang, that would have created the universe. Every single thing in this universe can be explained through science and mathematics. It wasn't just magicked out of thin air by this divine being, as many people for some reason choose to believe. Everything can be explained with science. And say she's got nothing but her sweat and blood to reverse engineer the God. Again, she's trying to reverse engineer. She's trying to create the inventor from the invention. But spent years without any success. There's no solution. It doesn't make sense. So she can't find the answer to this question now. How is she failing to create God? It should be easy to do. Suggestion that she spent years and years, maybe even decades, on trying to create this thing. And it says there's a blank space that sits amidst my script. I've tried it all, but nothing fits. So there's one big thing that's missing from all of the data, all of the information that she has. There's this massive hole in the middle of it, and she can't figure out what it is and why she can't come to this conclusion. And then it goes into a sort of alternate version of the chorus. It says, what if there's no God Almighty and there's no soul eternal? There is brain and there is body and there is a cog. From the cog I made a body, with the spring I made a mind. Will the mind grow almighty and become a god? So this is where she starts questioning, what if God doesn't actually exist? I'm trying to create something. I'm trying to recreate something that isn't real. I'm trying to recreate something that doesn't exist. What if there is no soul eternal? What if when we pass, that's it? There's no soul that sort of carries on, as, again, many people choose to believe for some obscure reason. She's saying, what if God doesn't exist? What if the soul doesn't exist? There is a brain, there is a body. That I can recreate. I can make a facsimile of that. But if there's no soul, if there's no God, I can't recreate that because it does not exist. There is nothing to copy. I can invent a version of what people think a god is, but I can't actually recreate this being that for some reason millions of people believe exists, because there's nothing to copy. You can't copy something that doesn't exist. I need more parts to make a god than there are atoms in the world. There is less copper than I need. My perfect vision is incomplete. The revelation came to me. The God is but a fantasy. There is no God. The image fake. The only God is the one we make. You know, so she sat there for ages going, you know, what's the hole in my work? Why can I not complete this task? You know, I need more things than there is. I need more parts than could possibly exist to create this amazing divine being. So if there's not enough parts, then surely, the original copy wouldn't have, there wouldn't be enough parts for the original person, this divine entity. So I can't recreate something because it's physically impossible. There's nothing to copy. There aren't enough parts to make it. And then she goes, it sort of came to me. I came to the realization there is no God. It's a complete fantasy. It's just something people made up to make themselves feel better about their existence in the world, to explain away the things that they can't explain. There is no God. The image is fake. The only God is the one we make. There's that phrase that I said earlier, man was created in God's image. But in reality, God was created in man's image. We created him to explain things. Millions and millions, or maybe not millions, thousands of years ago, people were like, how did we come to exist? How did we arrive on this planet? How did the world appear as it is now? So they sort of explained it away by saying, well, obviously there was some magical being who made us. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Let's go with that. And let's write it in a book. And then several thousand years down the line, everybody is going to believe this utter bullshit. We're just going to, rather than actually, finding out the real reasons, we're just going to make some shit up, tell people that that's fact, and people are going to believe it. I've mentioned many, many times, I do not believe in any kind of religion. I think it's absolute bullshit. It's just something used to control people. So she's gone, the only God is the one we make. These people who wrote the Bible, I often make the joke it's made by J.R. Hartley. People in the UK might get that joke. These people years ago wrote the Bible, created it by committee, chose which stories they're going to put in. They made this character Jesus. A person called Jesus may have existed at the time. I mean, it is a real name, Jesus or Jesus or whatever. It does exist. For some reason, Jesus is interpreted as a white man, which makes no sense considering he was in the Middle East. He was born in the Middle East. And nothing about the actual book makes any sense. If you actually read it, it doesn't make sense. It's full of contradictions. It's full of misogyny and hypocrisy and, stuff like that. It makes no sense if you actually read it, rather than just pick and choose which parts you want to believe and then twist them to make it fit your ridiculous dogma. But, so this thing was sort of created by men to sort of control men and to explain away things that at the time they couldn't explain, How did we come to exist on this planet? Some magic man made us one day. All right, yeah, I'll believe that. And then it goes into another altered version of the course. It says, first, there is no God Almighty, and there is no soul. There is a brain, there is a body, and there is a cog. From the cog I made a body, with a spring I made a mind. There is nothing that's almighty, so the mind prays to the clockwork God. So, saying that, she's created this facsimile for what people perceive as God. She's made a version, but it's not a copy of God because there is no God to copy. So she's made this amazingly advanced creation that could be interpreted as a clockwork version of a God. So, yeah. It's actually a pretty deep philosophical piece of music, I think, because it's discussing the existence of this magical sky man, You know, and she's saying, you know, it's impossible to recreate it because you can't recreate something that doesn't exist. You know, I've said that several times. So, yeah, quite an interesting song for them. It's like I said, it's a more sort of serious and dark song for them. You know, from the songs that I've heard. You know, they've released several EPs and possibly a few albums. I know there's a couple of loads more tracks out there that I haven't actually looked at, but all the ones that I have checked out have been, you know, sort of slightly silly. You know, they've had this sort of almost comedic edge to them. But this is a lot sort of darker and a lot more serious. But I really like it. You know, the music, like I say, it's really catchy. You know, it really sort of digs in your mind. You know, throughout all of this, I've still had the music going in my mind. You know, because it's like an earworm, and it's a good earworm, and I really like it. I really enjoyed this band when I first heard their version of "We Are Number One." You know, because that video immediately set the tone for what to expect from this band. You know, it was very silly. I mean, the first thing you see is the singer playing a kazoo, and then, you know, they're copying a song from a kids' TV show. You know, and they're playing kids' musical instruments throughout the video. You know, it's a very silly song. You know, and then Execution's fun. You know, and then there was Spooky Scary Skeletons. You know, and they're all sort of really good, fun, silly kind of songs. This is, like I say, is a bit more dark, a bit more serious, a bit more sort of thought-provoking and possibly provocative in its subject matter. But I really like it. I like this band. I think they are great. They are incredibly entertaining. And, you know, I like her voice. She's got a good voice. So, yeah. Another entertaining piece of music from Tardigrade Inferno. I mean, just the name of the band. Tardigrade Inferno. Says everything, doesn't it? But anyway, I don't know what else I can say about that, so I'll leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe, because it really would help me out. It would really help the channel out. You know, because as it is, I think only about 9.5% of the people actually watching my videos are actually subscribed, and as a result of that, you know, people aren't liking, people aren't subscribing. My videos are sort of just disappearing off into the nether realm, and, you know, I put a lot of time and effort into making these videos, and, you know, with people not liking and not subscribing, you know, they're not getting recommended to people. Now, I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and, you know, I'm lucky if my videos break even 50 likes in a month. You know, it's kind of disheartening, because, you know, I like to talk about music. Music has always been a huge passion of mine, and, you know, I like to share music with people. You know, people might not have heard of a band that I've been looking at. You know, I might look at a band and somebody might watch one of my videos and go, "Oh, I've never heard of this band before. This is quite good," you know, and I've turned them on to something new and something that, you know, they'll enjoy. And, you know, I've discovered several new bands from doing this. You know, and I love discovering new music. And, you know, I hope to do that for other people. But, you know, if my videos sort of just disappear off into the nether realm, you know, it's not going to happen. So, you know, if you could like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. It really would help out the channel. And, yeah. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.